Welcome back, my naughties, to another edition of Deadtime Stories. I'm your host, Naughtia Nightshade. Tonight, we bring you 3 more spooky tales I pulled off the web. The web has so many naughty things on it, just waiting to be devoured. Like the other day, I was reading a captivating story about an immortal dog. It was impossible to put down. Once again, here's my sweet Hector. Since I lost him, I decided to keep his remains with me always. As I get older, I remember all the people I've lost along the way. My job as a tour guide did not go well. What's that, Hector? Oh, I'll surely tell them. Don't forget to give my like button a good spanking and subscribe so you can join us for more stories. And make sure to tune into our Halloween special, where we'll have some wonderfully spooky surprises for you. Our first story of the evening is about a couple who lucks into their first dream home. Or should I say, scream home? Victor and Danielle recently purchased a gorgeous old home through a bank auction. It was a foreclosure, and they had received an amazing deal on the property. Danielle excitedly took over the interior decorating duties, while Victor succumbed to the kitchen remodeling. Danielle found a small room off the kitchen covered in grotesque tanned wallpaper, which had the appearance of a sun-stained peach. Danielle began stripping the hideous paper from the walls. In doing so, she was reminded of her childhood in the summers, peeling off her sunburned skin in long strips. Satisfied with her work, Danielle noticed writing on the back of each strip she'd torn down. There were names and dates. Perplexed at what this could all mean, Danielle called out to Victor to take a look. "Honey, you gotta see this. It's a bit eerie." That night, Danielle and Victor decided to entertain their curiosities and look up the names they saw on the back of the wallpaper. When the headline appeared missing persons, the couple instinctively looked at each other with fear. "I think we should call the police," Victor uttered to his wife. Danielle gathered the wallpaper strips as Victor dialed 911. A while later, the crime scene investigation unit arrived, and Victor had led the team to the small room which Danielle had been working in, and explained what they had discovered. Danielle handed over the strips to the investigators. They pondered the texture of the wallpaper, and with all seriousness, looked at Danielle and Victor in the eyes, and shuddered. "Sir, ma'am, this isn't wallpaper. It's human skin!" Well, I sure hope she washed her hands after. That story just makes your skin crawl, doesn't it, Hector? Oh, oops, no skin. Actually, no organs at all. It's funny, when you donate 1 kidney, you're a hero, but when you donate 5, you're a monster! A young couple was returning home from a trip to New England in their horse-drawn carriage. As they drove their horses through the moonless night, the lights on their carriage failed. They knew they would have to seek shelter for the night. The husband spied a light through the trees and turned their horse into a small lane leading up a hill. A pleasant little house stood at the crest, and an old man and his wife met the couple at the door. They were in their night clothes and were obviously about to turn in, but they welcomed the travelers and offered them a room. The old woman bustled about making tea and offering freshly baked cakes, and then the travelers were shown to their room. The husband wanted to pay the old couple for the lodgings, but the old lady shook her head, and the old man refused any payment for such acts of kindness. The travelers awoke early and tiptoed out of the house, leaving a shiny 50-cent coin in the center of the kitchen table, where the old couple could not miss it. The husband hitched up the horse, and they went a few miles before they broke their fast at a little restaurant in town. The husband mentioned the nice old couple to the owner of the restaurant, and the man turned pale. "Where did you say the house was?" he asked. The husband described the location in detail. "Well, you must be mistaken," said the restaurant owner. "That house was destroyed 3 years ago by a fire, and it killed the Brown family." "I don't believe it," the husband said flatly. "Mr. and Mrs. Brown were alive and well last night." After debating for a few more minutes, the couple and the restaurant owner drove the carriage back out of town, towards the old brown place. They turned into the lane, which was overgrown with weeds, and climbed the hill to the crest. There, they found a burned-out shell of a house that had obviously not sheltered anyone for a long time. "I must have missed the track," said the husband, and then the wife gave a terrified scream and fainted into his arms. As he caught her, the husband looked into the ruin and saw a burnt table with a shiny 50-cent coin sitting on it. Well, I sure hope they took their money back. Speaking of coins, I was digging in my garden the other day, and I found a chest full of gold coins. I went to go tell my husband about it, and then I remembered why I was digging in the garden in the first place. A rich man's wife became deathly ill the night before Christmas in 1798, so he called for the doctor. By the time the doctor arrived, his wife seemed to have died. Her husband was so grief-stricken that he locked himself in the room and did not attend the funeral. The servants of the house carried the rich woman's body to the vicar, who, in a drunken stupor, held the ceremony quickly. The veil was drawn across her face, the stone lid lowered, and the iron grille locked. Just before the clergyman fell to sleep later that night, he remembered the beautiful emerald ring on the finger of the woman he had just laid to rest. Wanting the ring and thinking no one would find out, he went downstairs, unlocked the lid, opened it, and tried to pry the ring off. It would not budge. He ran and brought back a file to cut the ring off the finger. When that didn't work, he severed her finger and pulled the ring off. As he left, he turned around to pick up the iron lid and screamed at the top of his lungs. He dropped the ring and ran. The woman had awakened, was moaning, and held her severed finger towards him with an evil smile on her face. Wearing nothing but her fine silk dress, the woman walked back to her home, knocked on the door, and rang the bell, but to no avail. The servants had all gone to sleep. It was late on Christmas Eve. She lifted a heavy stone, threw it at her husband's window, and waited. He came to the window with a sorrowful look on his face. Suddenly, to her surprise, he yelled, "Go away! Why must you torture me so? Don't you know my wife had just died? Let me mourn, and do not bother me again." With this, he shut the window. He didn't realize that it was his wife who had thrown the rock. She repeated her actions, again throwing the rock at the window. He opened the window again, and she yelled to him, "I am no one but your so-called dead wife. Now come down here and open this door, unless you'd like me to die a second time on our doorstep." "You're a ghost then," he said to her. She said, "No, for ghosts don't bleed. Now come down here before I catch my own death of a cold." The man, with a joyous look on his face, came down to meet his wife and took her inside, where he called the doctor once more and told him the news. Meanwhile, the clergyman ran home and up the stairs. In a state of fright, he hung himself from the rafters of his home. If he had only known that the woman only wanted to thank him, she had not died after all, but had gone into a coma. When he cut off her finger, the pain woke her up. Gee, Hector, he's really hung up on that ring, wasn't he? I'm reminded of a story of two hunters. One of them collapses, and the other hunter calls 911 and says, "You gotta help me. My friend just collapsed and he's not breathing." The operator says, "Relax. First, we have to make sure that he's actually dead." The hunter goes, "Okay." And there's silence. And then there's a gunshot, and the hunter comes back on the phone, and he says, "Well, now what?" Well, that's all the stories we have for this evening. Did you like them, Hector? Oh, I'm glad. It's important to have a good vocabulary. If I had known the difference between antidote and anecdote, one of my good friends would still be alive today. And what's your favorite book, Hector? He says The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He really enjoys a character with a twisted backstory. Well, it's bedtime, my naughties. Time to go tuck yourself. And remember, if you give a man a match, he'll be warm for hours. But if you light him on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Pleasant dreams.